Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back, everybody. Every time we get together with this gentleman, we get insight on what's going on around us, things that we take for granted in terms of how transportation is set up, how our downtowns were designed, right from the flow of traffic to the flow of sewage, if you will. And that's because he's got decades of experience as an urban planner and has also taught that as well to many along the way at the University of Pittsburgh. And he is our man of the year. He's actually back with us today, and we're going to dig into some feedback that we've gotten since he was on last with us. He is Richard Golden Bickel Jr. back on the show. How you doing today, Richard?
Very good, Steve. How are you?
Real good, real good. Normally, we talk about some current events, things that are going on that relate to urban planning, transportation. I'm going to dig into an email that we got, and you definitely inspire a lot of students and people looking toward the field. In my understanding that there are more and more people interested in the field of urban planning. This is Nick in Peoria, Illinois. He says, I've been researching urban planning as a career. I'm trying to get a feel for the kind of work that's done. It's not something that can be searched online. Can you give an example of a project you did?
Well, when I first started working at Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, at the County Planning Commission, I was assigned a neighborhood to look at in a nearby township, and it was there was a road that was never completed. It started through the neighborhood and then stopped. And this was a low-income minority community, and they were concerned that they were not getting the same kind of services that other parts of the township were getting. So I did an analysis of what was happening there, and the study was called the Rahway Avenue Feasibility Study. And the idea, many people wanted that road to be extended and the traffic to flow through this neighborhood. Well, surprisingly or not surprisingly, they didn't want that. They were very happy to have the road not go through their neighborhood. And the conclusion of the study was, let that situation remain, but try to make some other improvements to the road pattern. And so instead of having a dead end, put a cul-de-sac in or things where people could turn around and also respect their feelings.
So you made it more effective for them instead of just a hard stop at the end of the road.
Right. Well, and I heard the message that they said. Some planners or engineers would say, okay, that's their opinion. But this was such a small scale that I thought it was very important to listen to what they were saying. And the township, I think, was relieved that they wouldn't have to do the capital improvements that were talked about.
How did you determine that this was a positive change for the community and made sense?
They said the consistent message from the people there was, if you extend this road out to the adjacent road network, we're going to get shortcutters who don't want to go to the intersection to make a left turn. They'll come shooting up our neighborhood and then get onto that road further up the way. And also, some had children, and they were worried about safety issues. And so, having heard that opinion, I mentioned it to the township manager, and also we talked to the local elected officials, and their view was supported.
You talk about a dead-end street. I feel I have to share this because it's a memory that popped in my mind. But I lived on a street that went for maybe 3 blocks and then hit a dead end. And I'm on vacation in Bermuda. And I walk into a pub and I see a guy and his wife, and his name is Paul. I had not seen him in years, and we used to do a little work together. We'd hang out every once in a while. This is back when I was in my 20s, and I'm like, "How's it going? How you been?" He goes, "Yeah, doing well." I'm like, "Where do you live?" He's like, "I live in Miller Place." I'm like, "I live in Miller Place too." And I'm like, "What street do you live on?" He said, "Harrison Avenue." I said, "Whoa, wait a minute! I live on Harrison Avenue." I've never saw him. Turns out. And I wasn't even aware of this, that at that dead end, there's a patch of woods and Harrison Avenue picks up on the other side. So, and it was a newer development. I had never even been there. I didn't even realize that it was also the same name. And he was living at the end of my street, but it was broken up by a pretty large patch of woods. So it's funny, just the things you don't realize when you just look around your neighborhood. Why they didn't continue that road, since it had the same name, I will never know. It'll always be a mystery.
There might have been some opposition to taking out those trees.
Yeah, like a buffer, something like that.
Yes, and but that's an interesting story. Sometimes people give public participation a bad name, but in the case of this Rahway Avenue study, public participation led the way.
I have to imagine that can be one of the more beneficial parts of the urban planning career, but it can also be the challenge as well, dealing with the public and opinion and all of that, right?
Right. But planners usually are either public employees or they work for a consulting firm. But in both cases, the local elected officials are the ones that either employ them or are paying the bills for the consulting study. And so you can have opinions, but you have to temper some of those opinions by the reality of the local politics and the situation, and that will help you in your career. You can't just walk into a room and say, well, this is what we're going to do because I think it's great.
Yeah, it seems like a delicate blend. I just want to mention, if you want to reach out to us, 631-438-1576. Going to grab a call. Hi, can you hear us?
Hi, how you doing? It's David from Ohio State. How you doing?
Hey, David, how you doing?
I'm good, actually. I was listening in. By the way, I love listening in. It actually is very inspiring. But I had a question for him, though. When did you realize that planning was like a passion for you?
When I started at Pitt, University of Pittsburgh, I wanted to be a doctor, and I had a passion for wanting to be a doctor. But then I took organic chemistry and didn't do very well, and I knew all of a sudden I wasn't going to be a doctor. So I was thinking, how can I take my current major, which was sociology, and find a profession where I could apply some of my sociology background and also get involved with urban and suburban planning issues. And so I took an urban geography course, and it was taught by a professor in the planning school, and I was in my junior year, still didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but that turned me on to the concept of planning, and I ended up staying at Pitt and getting my master's degree at the Graduate School of Public and International Affairs. And it worked out very fortuitously because at the same time we had the Vietnam War going on, and I was concerned about getting drafted, but I wanted to start into a program that would provide a future employment opportunity as well.
Wow.
And have you ever done any public or community service as well?
Well, I would say urban planner doing a community planning program, that's public service. You have night meetings that sometimes start around 7 or 7:30, and you sometimes don't get home till 11:30 at night because if there's a public meeting with people offering their opinions, these meetings can tend to run long. And I was driving all over the county, sometimes 50 or 60 miles one way, because Montgomery County is a pretty big county. And you end up feeling like you're a one-man band, and you're relying on your wits, and you're relying on the support back at the office from the executive director and others. But when you're at night meeting representing the county, you have that responsibility as well as trying to accomplish the study that you're working on.
Richard, do you feel that in your career, first you wanted to be a doctor, and then you pivoted over to urban planning. Do you feel that inside of you, it really came down to the same thing, and that is wanting to make the quality of life better, helping people, in a positive direction?
Yes, that's true. I never even knew about planning when I started at Pitt, and it's ironic that I ended up almost in a similar situation. I would say engineering is a good prerequisite for planning, or something to study, and also public health. All these kinds of programs have aspects of community service and support that are great for planning.
Do you remember, and it's been said that if we're going to do anything in life, it should be your life, your purpose in life. Obviously, it's yours. You've done this for 4 decades. Do you? And it started in a medical career, or at least your sights were set on that. Do you remember the moment that it hit you in the beginning, where you said to yourself, "Yeah, this is what I should be doing. This is what I should be doing." Do you remember that moment?
Well, the first moment was when I was a junior in college and took that urban geography course. And the second moment was when I was starting planning school, feeling a little helpless, and having good professors who would give you counseling and tell you where you could put your efforts in. So I think those were the two aspects.
Yeah, how interesting. Here we are talking about this, and you inspire others in these conversations, like the call we just got, Nick from Illinois. I've always wondered about this, and we've never talked about it. There's many different aspects of urban planning. It could be the building aspect, the business district, housing, whatever it might be. Could be the transportation aspect, the public transportation, the flow of trains and buses, or it could be the roads themselves. It could be the sewage aspect that needs to be addressed. Those, or whatever I'm missing there, is there one or two things that you enjoyed working on more than other things in your career?
Well, when I worked at the county, I really enjoyed helping to prepare local comprehensive plans, which usually have a 20-year time horizon, looking at the population and employment statistics and defining a plan that meets the needs of the community, both demographically but also the development pattern. You might have different strategies for a community that's somewhat depressed versus a community that's growing by leaps and bounds. And the plan has to reflect those kinds of policies.
You just said a 20-year plan. Is that kind of a marker when these studies are done or proposed that, yeah, what we're working on here, we're looking 20 years out? Is it kind of a standard?
Yes, I think it certainly was when I started. It may be a little different now, but that's one of the things you want to look at. And because you want to have at least one or two census results to see what's happened over the preceding 10-year period, and that can help shape how you might change some of your policy approaches, too.
I know that we skimmed upon this in the past, and it seems to be coming up again, but I've seen and read that some municipalities just look at the birth rate, and that's how they realize, oh, well, you know what, population, based on projections is going to, take us from this point to that point. When it's population in mind, what have you found to be the best baseline for making those predictions and deciding on, maybe those 20-year plans?
Well, population increase or decrease has three factors: births, deaths, and the development pattern, or sometimes called migration. Are those people moving in? Are people moving into the community, or are they leaving? And those three factors help to shape a forecast for the next 10 to 20 years. And so you need to be aware of those things. And you start with looking at the current census or recent one, and then you try to develop this 20-year plan, which means you're going to have at least one or two more censuses, and you make the best guess you can using those three factors and aware of what's happening in the community, the real estate market, the existing development, if there are areas of decline that need to be shored up. All those factors have to be looked at in a comprehensive way.
I'm hearing that many spots in Texas, like Austin, Texas, areas around that, I think it's Georgetown, Texas, are fastly growing, like some of the fastest growing cities in the U.S. Any thoughts on Texas itself growing, or any other areas of the country that you're seeing that are popping up very fast?
Well, I think Texas has a pro-growth mentality, but also they're a hotbed for technology companies, and their market is right in line with their policies. And so it's no wonder that some of these areas, which used to be not ghost towns, but used to be backwater areas, are becoming growth centers.
Sure. Even North Carolina, like Raleigh, North Carolina, I can remember I was in my low 30s, and I looked at that area, then I looked at it again probably 10 years after that. I just didn't have the confidence to move away from where I grew up. But it was growing fast back then, and I'm still hearing like Raleigh, Durham, Cary, North Carolina, those metro areas, big. Yep. Yeah. And part of it, I think, to your point, technology. Even back then, they saw technology exploding.
Yeah, my parents drove to North Carolina every year, and because my mother was from there, in Smithfield, near Raleigh. And I always enjoyed seeing a different part of the country, growing up in New York, and it was fascinating. But at that time, I don't think they talked as much about technology back in the 50s, but it was certainly coming, and they had the right atmosphere for it. And you've got to have a good employment atmosphere, but you also have to worry about where are people going to live? How long is their commute going to be? And North Carolina and some of these places, like parts of Texas, are looked at as a good market for both housing and development.
I want to touch upon housing. I'm glad you said that word. Where I am, Long Island, you don't see any houses being built. It's so far and few between. Maybe a spot build every 10 miles. A lot of apartment complexes with very astronomically high rents. What's it like around the country? I used to drive around when I was younger, and you'd see developments going up. You'd see a lot of construction. It was kind of exciting seeing the architecture and such. Is building houses, developments, communities still happening around the country, according to what you see?
It's happening in certain areas, and then the word affordable housing, which creates fear in the hearts of many suburbanites, is talked about quite a bit. And no one's created a magic answer. You have to work hard to get affordable housing developed in areas that are already generally developed, called infill development. And the neighbors are not happy when these projects are announced, no matter how good the benefits would be. And that's called the NIMBY syndrome, not in my backyard. And that is a real negative for public meetings.
It's so funny when you say affordable housing. Go back in the day, that would be perceived as, well, housing for people that are in a low-income situation.
Right.
And that would be, not in my backyard. Come on, no. Now, when I hear the term affordable housing, that's for everybody.
Right. The income levels of affordable housing vary by the location. Affordable housing in Manhattan is above the income of many, many people.
Sure.
And yet they still have areas of poverty and other things going on. But it's a little different than looking at a suburban town.
Yeah, but it just seems, way back, or even go back 20 years, that when you said that term, you had a different picture of it. Now,
right.
When they say I don't know of any affordable housing in my area that's going up, because every apartment complex that they're building, you are not renting even a 2-bedroom apartment in a complex, new or old, for less than upper 2000s, easily in that territory. Nowhere. Again, this is Long Island, New York. I'm not in the city, although, an hour ride from the city, but you can't find anything for less than that.
Every Sunday, the New York Times publishes in their real estate section a list of fastest growing or areas that have lower or higher rents, and they have various cities that are listed. Mm-hmm. And the highest ones are usually places like New York or on the West Coast, the major cities. And the areas that are lower are some of the gritty cities that are along the Northeast Corridor and some other places that have a combination of wealth and, in some cases, lower income folks. In New York, there's that same combination, but if you're looking at Manhattan, you're talking about some of the most valuable real estate in the world, and that's why the costs are so high.
Yeah, crazy. Well, for the future of urban planners, some of the people maybe we talked today or heard from, like Nick, please help us.
I would say a good resource is the American Planning Association. They have publications, they have courses, and their website is the APA, American Planning Association. I would recommend looking into that, and for community planning or other professions.
Sure. I appreciate that. And everybody checking in, if you didn't get through today, instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com. He's our man of the year, and so great getting the insight on everything that affects us here. Richard, great having you on the show. Really appreciate it once again.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
All the best. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge.
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend.
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.